Hi, my name is Savannah Carter, and this is my second video blog for understanding women. And the first question is, what were some of the most interesting discoveries I made while since beginning this class? One of the most interesting discoveries I've learned is that when lesbian women have babies, they often receive a pay increase because their employment assumes that one of the partners is staying home taking care of the babies. I also learned that most networking happen in informal interactions. Also, I learned that typically sometimes when women become leaders or bosses in an industry or company, it's typically in an industry or company that is sinking, and they're typically using the woman as a scapegoat to say that if it does fail, it was the woman's fault, but then if it doesn't, they try to demote her and make it seem like a man or someone else to like get the credit of her like uplifting the company. Very unfair. And that typically in school socialization ties tend to fail women of color. About issues pertaining to women and gender is that in school where kids get separated into gender socialization norms because it tends to be easier on school system, and it's typically okay. I learned that they typically separate girls and boys to make it easier on them, and they enforce like girls like doing one thing while boys do something else, and it's typically like girls doing like, you know, dainty things like maybe painting or whatever, and having the boys like I don't know, like play basketball or something like that. Something that I learned about myself after learning about these is that I don't want to work for anyone. I feel like the work environment is very unfair, especially to women of color, and I feel like I want to create my own business so I can be my own boss, so I won't have to go through that. I know I'm gonna have to go through it at some point in time, but I want to create an environment where women of color, people of color can work and not have to deal with those stressors. What did you know about issues pertaining to women and gender prior to beginning this class? I already knew that the workforce was very unfair to women of color and women in general. I already knew that, but this class was kind of eye-opening to how bad it actually is. What have I learned since? I have learned that society, people tend to I learned that people tend to blame mothers for like how a kid is dressed, how they appear at school, and how they're seen, versus like actually thinking about like, what if their dad dressed them today? What if their dad dressed and got them ready for school? They just automatically assume that it was the woman, all because of society norms of gender roles, of the mother's supposed to make sure that their kid is well put together, versus the dad just going to work and then coming home. It's more on the mother to make sure that the household is put together, and it's supposed to be seen on the child, like that the child is well taken care of. And I also learned that people tend to speculate women in the work environment, and they tend to assume things of women based on how they dress, talk, and the way they carry themselves in a work environment versus a man. Like, it was a point in the class where we were discussing that a man could like walk into a work environment and they would just automatically assume like, oh, he's probably the boss, the manager, or whatever. Versus a woman, they will ask questions like, when's the manager coming, or who are you? Are you a TA or whatever? When you're the professor, you're the person that they should be looking up to. And it's assumed that women in a work environment is supposed to be nurturing and caring to their workers, or if they want to demand respect or set boundaries, they're seen as strict and kind of a dragon lady because of enforcing those, versus being a pushover. And I feel like that's very unfair. Versus a man, it's like automatic respect and authority, and they're most of the time like laid back. What makes sense? What would you do differently as a result of what you learned? What I would do differently from what I've learned, I would, first, I didn't mention that I would negotiate more of like my pay in a smart way. And I also would start trying to build my business now, like before I get out of like college. I want to have everything put together so I won't have to do this, but that requires networking. What beliefs of yours have challenged since learning about topics in this class? There weren't any beliefs that I can really pinpoint that was challenged. A new perspective that I do have is that I want to build an environment for people of color and women to thrive. And that's all. Thank you.